no drummer available. I'm producing drums with Addictive Drums too. The general rule that I use here is if you want to go for that Dave Grohl early 90s type of drum sound, so in utero type of drums or Nevermind. I know they were produced by two different people, okay? But yeah, if you want to go for that kind of signature sound, I would say you have to bump up the kick a little bit and try to choose like more of an attacky kind of kick sound. So this is how my kick sounds. So as you can see here, I've selected most of the beater mic instead of the front mic, because the front mic picks up more of that bass, a low end, and we want some of that clunky attack sound. So it's definitely going to cut through the mix and, you know, have that very bumpy sound that we like from that era of drum style of production. The snare is very in your face kind of snare too, so the most important thing that I've done here is select most of the bottom mic, because the bottom mic kind of gives you that little bit trashy ness of the snare. It's a really great sounding snare. It's not trashy at all, but I think you understand what I mean. If you were looking for that garage rock type of sound, this is a really nice way to get there. So yes, some compression and distortion on both the snare and the kick. Nothing much, really nothing much. I'm just like going with the most of the stuff from the Fairflex 1 and 2 drum kits. So these samples were recorded at Sound City Studios, which is where Dave Grohl recorded the Nevermind drum kit sound. Toms 1 and 2, not much processing at all, just the presetted EQ that came with the kit. Now, the overhead sound is very important if you want to have this Dave Grohl type of sound, or so I've heard from producers that I've worked with. Okay, these are some of the most important mics because they're very close to what we associate to a drum kit when we listen, like when you're standing in a room with a drum player. The overheads are very close to what we hear. Since they're condenser microphones, they capture a lot of the room resonances and overall the reverb and, you know, the full sound of the drum kit. So it's a very important mic to create this whole picture of the drum kit. And I've done quite some processing here. Honestly, this EQ wasn't supposed to be on at all. But I've done some compression and applied some distortion. I also applied some tape drive and, you know, some shape to add some character to these mics so they pop out a little bit more and they distort a little bit on your ears, which is really cool and something that can bring up their level a little bit more. As you see here, the mix on the distortion is 100%. And the amount is not that much, because if it would be that much, would break the sound too much, and that's not what we're looking for. Remember, early 90s grunge type of sound, not that distorted at all, but huge. You want to make the drums sound huge and not that distorted, okay? Let's go for the room mic. This is quite an important microphone, and I've chosen, as I said, a lot of distance because we're trying to capture the sound of the room here. We're trying to give that huge drum kit feel. Again, some compression and some EQ. I've done some EQing here, but honestly, nothing that's very different from what came with the room preset at all. Addictive Drums allows you to separate out tracks and send, you know, treat like individual microphones, individual tracks on your DAW, but I haven't done this since this is just for like a YouTube video. You can do a lot more processing than this, but I've chosen to go the easier route since this is just like a YouTube video. And I'm sending everything through a bus. Here on my drum bus, I have some EQ, which is honestly a preset that I found within Logic, and I liked it. Kind of brought the whole arrangement together and cleaned up the sound a little bit. Also going through compression, again, standard Logic compressor, soft distortion to give it a little bit of an analog feel. And this is something that I've learned with Kevin Parker from Tame Impala. The compressor is hitting the soft distortion quite hard, so it's kind of breaking the sound a little bit. Not too much. Again, we're not looking to crush the drum sound. I love crushing drum sounds, okay? Nothing wrong with that. But for this mix, I was going for something Dave Grohl-ish, like, as I said. After that, some reverb. And I'll show you guys how all of that sound. So now activate and deactivate the send bus. As you guys can see, quite an intense compression here. Most of it's snare, you know. And the reverb is definitely bringing some room to the drum kit. You can dive into it a lot more. I've done just some basic processing with one drum bus and, you know, nothing more than that, just so I can get a nice drum beat going for my song.